And too often, media outlets leave out many of the details that are absolutely critical to the outcome from the research study. For example, I just read a research article where the average caloric intake of the participants in the study was right around 6,000 calories per day, and they all lost weight. So what if the magazine headline read, "Eat 6,000 calories per day and lose weight"? I mean, it sounds pretty good, right? Well, what I didn't tell you was that the study was done on cyclists during just one day of the Tour de France, where they expended that many calories or more. And that's a big difference, right? This shows that the details of the research matter. And for this lecture, we will tackle the questions of when and how many times you should eat throughout the day and in and around exercise, especially to improve body composition. And without even considering what you should be eating, the concept of nutrient timing, or quite simply, when you should be eating, can seem pretty complex. But let's start at the most basic level right now. If I asked you if you should drink water during a long, hot jog in the heat, or wait until after your jog to drink water, you probably already know that nutrient timing is important. In this case, timing your water to take during your run would be most helpful. Well, nutrient timing can be applied to all sorts of aspects of eating and drinking to achieve optimal body composition. You know that the RDA for protein is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight to stave off disease. And for sake of making this easy, let's round 0.8 grams per kilogram to 1.0 grams per kilogram. Then let's say you have a 75 kilogram man, or roughly 165 pounds, and he consumes all of the recommended 75 grams of protein on a daily basis. Fantastic. Sounds spot on, right? Now, what if I told you that he consumed all 75 grams of that protein during his 6 a.m. breakfast? Does this change your opinion? Does it still sound great to you? Well, probably not. And the whole point here is that we all intuitively know that when you eat, your nutrient timing is an important factor. The purpose of this lecture is to discuss the different components of nutrient timing and to shed some light on which tactics seem to work best for body composition and performance. Now, before we get started, a key note to keep in mind throughout this lecture is that although there are common recommendations that exist, nutrition itself is very individualized. And what works for one person may not work for another person as well. And a person's goals like weight loss, an endurance race, or a bodybuilding competition will alter optimal nutrient intake. If you're like most people, then you probably wonder what to eat before or after your workout, or if a sports drink is something you should be sipping on at the gym. Well, timing when to eat our meals around exercise is important for many reasons. We need energy to fuel our workouts, perhaps even multiple bouts in one day. But at the same time, we don't want to eat too much or too close to a training session, or you may experience gastrointestinal issues that can make you feel terrible and ruin your workout. We're all aware that exercise can be tough enough as it is, so you don't want any additional issues. Now, before we really dive into the details of pre, during, and post-exercise nutrition, you should know that nutrient timing is an overarching idea that encompasses a variety of strategies that may be directed towards performance, recovery from strenuous exercise, improving body composition, or a combination of all three. So what should you do before exercise? Let's start with the obvious. You need the fuel and energy to exercise. Simple enough. Your body needs at least some fuel in the tank to perform optimally. Glycogen, which is the storage form of carbohydrates in the body, is the main fuel source during moderate to vigorous exercise. So it stands to reason that carbs are important pre-exercise nutrients, right? These energy stores are sometimes the limiting factor in exercise, and running out can be the cause for bonking or hitting the wall, as many long-distance exercisers can tell you about. Essentially, you run out of fuel and your tank is empty. Thus, it is recommended that consuming carbohydrates prior to exercise will fill up the tank. And this is usually talked about as carb loading. But how much? Well, it depends on your purpose and what level of activity you are doing. Recently, I was in Tennessee to watch the Ironman Chattanooga, an event where athletes swim 2.4 miles, bike 112 miles, and then run 26.2 miles. An amazing feat. Is carb loading important to these athletes? You bet it is. Most of these athletes compete at a high intensity for anywhere between 8 and 14 hours continuously. So not only is pre-exercise an important nutrition component, but so is during and post-exercise nutrition. During these races, athletes depend upon sports drinks and gels, pre-made sandwiches, and all sorts of foods that the athlete can eat without getting an upset stomach and that they can carry with them while riding a bike or running. No wonder nutrition is considered the fourth event, along with swimming, biking, and running, for triathletes. Many leading sports nutritionists instruct these athletes to take up their carbohydrate consumption to about 70% of their diet 5 to 7 days before a competition, by adding things like oatmeal, rice, pasta, and bread to almost every meal. However, does this really apply to the average person? To answer that, ask yourself if you exercise that much. Chances are that you don't, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. These people are exercising anywhere from 10 to 20 or more hours per week. But how should you change your pre-exercise nutrition if this carb loading isn't necessary for your average 30-minute jog or spin class at the gym every Tuesday? Frankly, the details of optimal pre-exercise nutrition strategies are less important to the average person. That's not to say that pre-exercise nutrition is not important. It most certainly is. However, simply getting in some good nutrition sources with carbohydrates and protein is all I would suggest concentrating on. I see time and time again people making the relationship between exercise and nutrition much more difficult than it really needs to be. In my experience with sports nutrition consulting, I have seen the greatest results in performance and body composition changes when things are simplified. And this crosses over all types of clients that I've worked with, from age group triathletes to Olympians. So just get in some good carbs and protein, ideally 3 to 4 hours before exercise. Be conscious of total calories that you are taking in and burning during exercise so that you don't end up overeating or adding too much to your total caloric intake and ultimately hurting your body composition or performance goals. You could simply eat 2 eggs and a banana or have a glass of milk. Also, I know many people who prefer to work out in the morning before they eat breakfast. If that's you and you like that, then go for it. But if you work out for more than 90 minutes or at a vigorous intensity, you might consider fueling up a little and see how it makes you feel. What about during exercise? Have you ever seen people carry Gatorade with them to a 5K race or huge jugs of sports drinks at the gym when only running on a treadmill for 20 minutes at a steady, moderate pace? Well, a common misconception is that you need these sugar-filled drinks to rehydrate no matter what type of exercise you are doing. However, if you are exercising for less than 60 to 90 minutes, all you really need to worry about is water. No extra calories needed. Remember, the muscle glycogen we talked about earlier and how it is the primary fuel for your body with hard exercise. Well, 1 hour of high-intensity exercise will only burn through about half of those glycogen stores. So while your favorite sports drink might taste delicious, for exercise of these shorter durations, consumption of sports drinks during the exercise itself will not really be beneficial to you. And if you're trying to lose weight and improve body composition, then these are really just added calories in the form of sugar that you don't really need. In my time doing sports nutrition research and working with sports nutritionists and collegiate athletes, it is amazing how improvements in body composition occur even in college-level athletes by monitoring nothing else but their sports drink consumption. The problem is that it tastes great, and most people think that they need it to replenish. Don't get me wrong, it can help, but consuming these throughout the day and in excessive amounts is not only impractical, but it may also hurt your performance and body composition. That being said, sports drinks aren't evil. In certain situations, they are needed, but the details matter too. Who is it? What exercise? How long? And how intense? If you are participating in long-distance or time-consuming endurance events like marathons, then you certainly need to replenish your body with additional calories during exercise. And sports drinks are a great way to do this. For endurance exercise that's longer than 60 to 90 minutes, general recommendations for athletes are to take in between 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour during exercise to extend performance. For example, you'll get about 50 grams of carbohydrates from 2 medium-sized bananas or 2 cups of most cereals or sports drinks. Now, I want to note that 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour is a pretty wide range. The reason this is such a wide range is that everybody is different. Some stomachs can't handle the higher end of this range and will have GI issues or feel bloated. That definitely won't help their performance. For example, one of my colleagues is working with a former collegiate athlete who has a very sensitive stomach when racing in college, to the point of not being able to consume any nutrition within 2 hours of racing.